Well, this is a good time as any to point out some of the misconceptions being put out there by the mainstream media once again. No big surprise here. But I felt this issue needed to be addressed since it was evidently all over the Sunday news and in other outlets for some time now. This is regarding the big three automakers and basically the news media putting the blame on workers and wages. And this is why these companies are failing when actually some issues have not even been considered or are being completely distorted in the first place. So this little tidbit comes from Media Matters, and it goes like this. Several media outlets have used data that combines the average cost of current wages and benefits and future benefits to falsely assert or suggest that auto workers make $70 or more per hour. But as analysts and some media outlets have also noted, these figures included not only future retirement benefits for current workers, but also benefits paid for current retirees. In other words, people who are already retired. As Congress debates whether to authorize a multi-billion-dollar bailout of the U.S. automotive industry, several media outlets, notable the New York Times and nationally syndicated radio host Lars Larson and MSNBC's Chris Matthews, have used data that combines the average cost of current wages and benefits and future benefits to falsely assert or suggest that auto workers make $70 or more per hour. But as analysts and some media outlets have noted, the figures include not only future retirement benefits for current workers, but also benefits paid to current retirees. Further, the big three U.S. automobile makers negotiated with the United Auto Workers Union in 2007 to significantly reduce the salary and benefits packages of new employees, a fact that Larson and Matthews did not even mention. Despite the misleading nature of the $70 per hour claim, it continues to be repeated. In a November 17th article in the New York Times, Sorkin, a columnist at the New York Times, described General Motors employees' benefits as off the charts. At GM, he said, as of 2007, the average worker was paid about $70 an hour, including health care and pension costs. Contrary to Sorkin's suggestion, the health care and pension costs include health care and pension benefits for current retirees, and not what the average worker is being paid. In other words, all of these figures are being lumped together. So what you do is you count the current employees and the former employees, and you put them all into a big pile, and then you divide it all and you figure out the benefits for the current retirees. So this is how they're coming up with these numbers. You know, it's essentially Enron style accounting. On November the 20th, on the edition Hardball, Heritage Foundation, that should tell you something right there. Senior research fellow James Gattuso, I don't know how you pronounce this name, Gattuso, stated, I think there is no reason that a UAW worker should get total compensation of $70 an hour when the average American only makes $25 an hour in total compensation. These are actually, these figures actually don't mesh at all. Matthews responded in part, they negotiate for their salaries and they're getting their $70. So that's how the free market works. And while speaking about unskilled high school graduate workers in the U.S. auto plants in his November 19th radio show, Larson said, when you're paying $73 an hour to those people with salary and benefits, and your competition is paying $48 to its workers, well, then you get your butt kicked in the marketplace, unfortunately. Contrary to Gattuso's, Matthews, and Larson's assertion, a UAW worker is not getting a total compensation of $70 an hour. Economist Dean Baker wrote that the $70 an hour figure that Sorton uses is distorted by conflating what's called legacy costs, medical and pension benefits paid to people who are already retired from that company, and lumping them together with current labor costs in order to come up with these figures. The New York Times told readers that GM auto workers are paid $70 an hour, including health care and pension. This is not true. The base pay is about $28 an hour. If health care costs per worker average $12,000 a year, that adds in another $6 an hour. If the pension payment takes up 25% of base pay, which is an extremely high rate, that gets you another $7 an hour, bringing the total to $41 an hour. That's decent pay after working for a company for many, many years. But it's still a long way from $70 an hour as it's being asserted now. How does the New York Times get from $41 to $70 per hour? Well, the trick is to add in the GM legacy costs. In other words, add in the retirees and healthcare costs for those people as well. And then add those benefits on to current workers and then come up with those figures. These legacy costs are, of course, a serious expense for GM, but it's not money being paid to current workers. The person on the line in 2008 is not benefiting from any of these legacy costs at all. The UAW, the union, also notes that the auto companies frequently inflate their labor costs by combining all of the expenses attached to maintaining their workforce overall. In addition to regular hourly pay, the labor cost figures cited by the companies include other expenses associated with having a person on the payroll. This includes overtime, shift premiums, and the cost of negotiated benefits such as holidays, vacations, health care, education, and training. Not only this, but the companies also add in statutory costs, which employers are required to pay by law, such as federal contributions to Social Security and Medicare, and state payments to workers' compensation funds and unemployment insurance funds. The highest figures sometimes cited also include the benefit costs of retirees who are no longer on the payroll. So I just wanted to set the record straight in terms of what's being said in the mainstream media. It is not The situation is not what you think. Well, good night.